So, I mean, with you, with your team, I feel like you guys are managing a lot of different relationships, right? Like, and that can be super overwhelming, executives and this and that. Like, how do you do it? And,
How do you manage all the relationships?
Yeah.
Well,
like any advice that you would say, like.
Well, and one thing I heard to before you even answer that question is one thing I've heard is that it was Nielsen Net Ratings or Gallup poll. It was some organization that did a study, and they said that one person can't manage more than 6 people effectively. So I don't know if you find that true or not, but yeah.
That resonates with me. That's about my threshold for direct reports, right? Yeah, I think that's a good point because, I mean, it does require a lot of internal collaboration. Because we cross-pollinate a lot, right? We're all out in very similar environments. We're having conversations, and we do need to make sure internally we know what the left hand knows what the right hand is saying, and everyone is, and everyone's aware. So I think some of that is just, making sure and the kind of like the internal collaborative conversations that we're having.
Gotcha. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of The Diligent Leader. I'm one of your hosts, Kalie Jakovics, and with me I have Holly Basta, Alexander Fakari, and today we have a wonderful episode called Driving Growth with a very special guest and friend, Amy Gowan, President CEO of Arundel Economic Development Corporation, also known as AAEDC. I think I got that right.
Yeah.
Say it 3 times fast, Kalie.
So, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure
absolutely.
to have you.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. I've listened to some of your podcasts, and they've all been great, and I love hearing about what other leaders in our region are doing. So I feel so privileged and honored to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're so welcome. I mean, you're definitely like a pillar, like a leader in the community. You're always out and about, tons of speaking engagements, and I always learn something new when I hear from you, and obviously about Arundel Economic Development Corporation. So we're excited to have you.
Thanks.
So for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So in my current role, I am President and CEO for Arundel Economic Development Corporation, otherwise known, as you said, as AAEDC. And basically what we are is a privatized function of county government is the way I like to describe it, right? So we provide services to the business community in Anne Arundel County. And all counties, municipalities, most have some type of economic development agency. Some are inside government, some are quasi and outside government. So we're actually a 501c3, but we exist to support the businesses in Anne Arundel County to attract investment to Anne Arundel County. So business attraction, try to help our local businesses. We want to retain and we want to grow our local business base because that's such a strong pillar for our local economy and our regional economy, obviously. And we're also doing more and more revitalization these days. So we're dipping our toes into some redevelopment activities. Okay. We could talk about that a little bit. But basically, I like to say we're the centralized hub, right? So businesses in the county, they have a need. They're looking for some type of resource, either we provide it or we have a very extensive network within the ecosystem where we can help make connections for businesses. And it might be that, we talk to a business and we meet with someone today and they call us a year from now because that's when they're having an issue. So these are real long-term relationships that we forge with our businesses. We're often known as the best kept secret, and people find out about us. They're like, how did I not know that you existed?
Oh my gosh. I can agree to that. And your team is so helpful, and it's not just about the resource, like what you're offering, but it's also connecting the community and businesses with other businesses that help them grow.
Exactly.
And it's a wonderful, wonderful organization.
So a little secret, well, not a secret, it was published, but we were actually a recipient of,
You did know that.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
right. Yes.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of attest to the value is not just here's a check or great, we have your name, have a nice day, right? We worked with some great members of your team on cultivating a path, making sure, this was, early on, but it was one of those things where we were able to really get more than just, call this phone number, right? It was really
Yeah.
engaging, helpful, and insightful resources that kind of really helped us, when we needed it. And so it was great. And so I would definitely say, if you have a business that you need that mentorship, that guidance, somebody to show you the path, I'd definitely start with Economic Development Corporation. It's fantastic.
And what you said that resonated with me is it was more than just here's a phone number.
Yes.
And that's something we pride ourselves on. We make a physical connection. We make sure that the person is connected to our contacts, and we are out, like Kalie said, we're out in the network, in the ecosystem all the time, networking, forging those relationships so that we can do that nice soft handoff to a business, to the resource that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think even though the other thing that people should know about is the relationship goes on beyond there. So I know I've called up just to ask a quick question, or see is there could you point me in this direction, that direction? But those relationships, you guys you're forging something much greater than just that transaction, whatever
Absolutely.
that form that is.
Yep.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and with some of your team members, I know I can call and be like, hey, do you have a connection for this or that, or how do I do this? And like Jill, Anita, like everybody,
Yeah.
they're
Somebody
like,
will have it.
Yeah, they're so helpful. So I love it.
It's a great team.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. So how did you come to this role?
Yes.
How did you find yourself here at the Anne Arundel County Economic Development Corporation?
Yeah. How far back do you want me to go? My last job?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I've
that's a
had
great point.
a kind of a divergent career
Okay.
past, and so it was very nonlinear. My last job was with Howard County Planning and Zoning. I was there for about 8 years, and half of that time I was the deputy director, and then for the rest of it I was the director. And I started in that leadership role in terms of like running the department right around when COVID started. So that was a challenge
time.
in and of
Yeah.
itself, right? But I learned so much about land use, about planning, zoning. I worked extensively on a new general development plan for the county. I authored part of the economic prosperity portion of that plan. I worked so closely with the Howard County Economic Development Authority. So I knew a lot about what economic development authorities do, how to interact with them. And I felt like when this opportunity came up, I thought, well, one, it was an opportunity for me to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
I loved the idea of something that was in this kind of quasi space where I would have a little bit more autonomy, be able to work with a board of directors, and learn how to run a nonprofit, essentially. And that was something that was new and a challenge. But I also thought that I had this really unique skill set and background to bring with the regulatory side and the kind of the more holistic perspective of all these different facets that build economic prosperity. So if it's housing and the transportation and growth and development and all of that, and understanding how all those pieces fit together.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a really good opportunity. My County Executive Pittman often likes to say that I went from regulator to facilitator. But it's great because, I understand how that regulatory system works, how those decisions get made. I was the decision maker, so I know, where the boundaries are. And I think it really helps. It really helps when I'm dealing with, big economic development projects, complex development projects, and helping to really navigate that permitting system, the whole processing side.
You know what I think, and I'll pass this over to Holly for her. But one of the things I think is interesting about interviewing you and sitting down with you, Amy, is that the show The Diligent Leader, right? We were talking about what it takes to get through, and being diligent and is it's a must criteria for any leader whatsoever. You probably meet tons of diligent leaders, people who have gone through with different personalities. I mean, do you have any thought, like, I guess how often do you find yourself surrounded by, great leaders, or do you find that your leaders are they're they're work in progress. Like, what do you typically find from your vantage point, given
Of other
your role?
leaders?
Yeah, correct. That are coming to the county for help or assistance. I mean, you probably see a boatload of different types of personalities and people at different points in their journey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is there like a particular, do you find people who are just ready to go from the get-go, or do they're in process? Like, what do you typically see?
I feel like everything is a work in process, right?
Forever and ever.
And I am as well. I feel like, leadership is this lifelong journey, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, the further along I get, the more I realize I don't know. And the more I realize how much I have to learn and grow.
Right.
And it's like every experience is, experiences are new or different. You're taking what you've applied, but, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's managing people and projects and personalities and issues. And there's so many different angles and sides to all of it. I was recently not appointed, but selected for Leadership Maryland.
Oh, okay.
So we just kicked off this week. So I'm really excited. And that's going to be a great opportunity to meet some really, prominent leaders across the state and really build some relationships. And that's such a key part of leadership is the relationship building. Yeah. And that program I've just heard phenomenal things about. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited and jazzed about that. Yeah.
So I have to ask a hard question here, and not to be negative in any way, but keeping it real, because Alex and I are pretty, we pretty much say it like it is.
I love that. That's what makes a good podcast.
Yeah. Great. I love it. So have you ever found yourself in this role having a conversation with a business owner, maybe even a leader or business leader in their industry, but they're not ready to take those next steps for where they need to get to grow?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what does that conversation kind of look like? Like, how do you qualify them to say, I can help you with these resources? Or, have there been times where you've had to have it sort of a difficult conversation with someone and say, you're not there yet. You need to take these steps to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to do that frequently. And that's part of what we do is try to make sure that we have resources available for the life cycle of a business, right? So I think a great example is our Inclusive Venture Program, right? It's called IVP for short. It's like a flagship program that we started in 2021. And we're looking for businesses that are at a certain stage. They should be about 2 years in, generating revenue, ready to scale up. That's what that program is designed for. Sure. And I'd love at some point to talk more about it because it's such a wonderful program. But, we often have to say, you're not ready for this program yet. Let's put a placeholder, right? And it's not a denial, right?
Yeah, it's not a no.
Right. It's a, not this time because we want the cohorts to all be around the same stage and dealing with the same similar struggles, right? And the curriculum is designed a certain way as well. So, but and to go back to having the resources for the entire life cycle, but we always will have some other resource to offer. Yeah. So if they're not quite at that stage yet, we have resources for earlier stages. Yeah. And so it's easier to have that conversation when it's it's not necessarily it's more of a hold off on this now, but let's start here.
And are most of the clients receptive to that type of guidance, or are they sometimes? I'm sure it can be frustrating for them.
For the most part. Yes.
Energy.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, you sort of couch it as, look, you're not ready for over here, but we're still going to help you. We're still going to give you guidance and resources.
Absolutely.
We're not closing the door on you. But, in that case,
most people, obviously, some people will, take it harder than others for sure. But, for the most part, I think because we try to make this a long-term relationship and we want them to be successful. We're their biggest cheerleaders. And so you have to develop the rapport first. The business needs to know that you really are there to support them. And I think having the trust and the rapport makes it, an easier conversation. And then continuing, again, to work with them and stay with them through their whole journey.
Amy, so as I'm thinking about this, you have, this task that you're cultivating the relationships, but I think you have to create that culture within your organization as well. I'm sure that's been not necessarily an obstacle, but it's a continual effort, I would assume. Is that correct? What strategies do you do to get everybody on board to go get that ship going in the same direction? Everybody's rowing in the right direction. How do you handle that?
Right. That's a great question. So I've been on the job almost 2 years now.
Okay.
And I came in and I realized very quickly that we didn't have a roadmap. I mean, everybody was, and first of all, let me start by saying one of the reasons I took this job was because I was very well aware that AAEDC had a high-performing team. And I had previously been managing a high-performing team, and I was very much,
you were ready.
I was ready.
Yeah.
I once you've been there, you're not going back. So, the team was just again, they do a phenomenal job, but was everyone rowing in the same direction? Because there really was no roadmap. And that's a fundamental practice for a nonprofit organization, especially one that's been around for 30 plus years. So one of the initial goals that I set for myself was after year one, once I've gotten grounded in my position and I have an understanding of what we do and what the needs are out there and where I think we should be going, I was going to launch a strategic plan. And so I did that. I started that in September. And we're kind of towards the end of that process, but we aren't quite done yet. But really the overarching goal with that was to get exactly that, a roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years so that we are all steering in the same direction. And so through this process, we have revised our mission, we have set a new vision, and we have established core values. And so we're going to start to be weaving these into multiple threads within the organization. It's really important, I think, just from a leadership perspective, to make sure that you're doing this as a collaborative effort with the staff. And so, workshops and retreats and having some tough conversations. And so
they're invested in
yes,
the work.
Exactly. And so that's been a big piece of my time over the last year, because I think that corporate culture and feeling that sense of belonging and passion for the mission. I've got a lot of passionate people, so that's great. I mean, when you're helping businesses, that's why they get into the work. So that piece is easy. But really feeling that unity and everyone trying to understand what their role is in this larger mission and vision has been something I've been really focused on. So I'm pleased with where it's going. So stay tuned. We'll have something soon to share with everyone.
That actually sparked a question that I had. So, I mean, with your team, I feel like you guys are managing a lot of different relationships, right? Like, and that can be super overwhelming, executives and this and that. Like, how do you do it? And,
how do you manage all the relationships?
Like any advice that you would say, like.
Well, and one thing I heard before you even answer that question is one thing I've heard is that it was Nielsen Net Ratings or Gallup poll. It was some organization that did a study, and they said that one person can't manage more than 6 people effectively. So I don't know if you find that true or not, but
that resonates with me. That's about my threshold for direct reports, right? I think that's a good point, because it does require a lot of internal collaboration. Because we cross-pollinate a lot, right? We're all out in very similar environments. We're having conversations, and we do need to make sure internally we know what the left hand knows what the right hand is saying, and everyone is and everyone's aware. So I think some of that is just making sure, and the kind of like the internal collaborative conversations that we're having.
Gotcha.
But to your point, like it's a lot. We have a lot of different stakeholders. We are quasi-governmental, so we are primarily funded by the county. So we need to make sure that our programming is aligned with the county and where they see economic development needs.
Right.
But we also have all of the chambers that we work with and all of our partner organizations, and we're working directly with the business community. And so, at any given time, we are trying to constantly balance the needs of all of these different stakeholders.
Your recipients. That's
exactly.
It's not easy. It's challenging.
And so, do you find that you have various programs over there, right? You have MBE programs. I think you have veteran programs. You know, some different initiatives that are going there. I mean, so when you are deciding to have a program or push a particular program, what does how do you get your team on board to find which program should you be supporting and when? Because I mean, you got a lot going on, and you got to prioritize something.
Yeah, so I mean, we have our core programming that we've been doing for a while, right? And we're kind of the preeminent agency that does that, and we do it well. And so our goal is going to be to always continue to provide those services for the community because they've come to rely on them, and we're known for them. And we're a commercial lender, so we lend to small minority, women, veteran-owned businesses. We'll lend to businesses that maybe can't get traditional commercial financing. Right. So we can, we're trying to kind of hit that almost bankable, businesses that are maybe like right on the edge of bankable. Sure. So that's something that we're a fund manager for the state, and we're known for throughout the state for our lending programs. And then we have our business counseling. We have our accelerator program that's for upskilling and scaling up businesses. And then we can help with everything from permitting to
I didn't know that.
Navigating the permitting processes, navigating really any county process.
Permit I need, but I know who to call.
Yeah.
There you go.
You have my number. But back kind of to your point is like, so we have this core function. We do market analysis. So we're like the centralized hub, right? So we try to have all these different services, but needs are going to come up, right? Needs arise, and so sometimes it's a matter of taking an existing program like our Volt program, our lending program, and targeting it for a specific sector. Yeah. We started a micro loan last year, so a smaller loan product, lower interest rates, for businesses that have gone through like an accelerator program, like our inclusive venture program. And we're looking at doing some other things like that for specific industries. Example is cyber industry right now. They have to meet these different cybersecurity government contracting requirements. So we're trying to adapt our Volt loan to be able to service that need. So a lot of times it is kind of taking the existing program and serving different needs that we're finding out in the community as we're engaging with all the different entities out there in the ecosystem.
So it's the community giving you that feedback on what they do.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on that note, I mean, I'm curious because you are providing resources and support for a lot more minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses and expanding these programs. Is there one that you could sort of speak to that you would say has made a significant impact on the local economy as a result of the support that they've received from the Economic Development Corporation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say probably the two biggest, right, is the Volt loan program, and I say that is our biggest loan product for the small minority women-owned businesses at which you utilized or
the Volt, for veterans.
Yeah. And that's been around since 2013, and so we have about $22 million in our portfolio. So I think just from a scale, that's like the largest program from a dollar amount. But the Inclusive Venture Program, that's only been around since 2021. And that's a little bit different of an impact. But, essentially we have graduated 148 businesses in just, a few years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what we do with that program is after 18 months, we'll survey. So the businesses go through in cohorts. So you get like 10 to 12 businesses are going through. We'll survey them after 18 months. So with just the first 6 cohorts, and we're on cohort 14 now, just them alone, they have generated like 360 jobs and $33 million in revenue.
Wow.
So these are really
and so that's just your
measurable.
first, 6 cohorts. That's maybe 60 graduates or so.
Sure, wow.
And so we're keeping that going. And and probably the most dynamic and sustainable part of that is that we're really trying to forge a network. So what we try to do is then keep those businesses engaged with one another in this larger IVP network after they graduate. So we'll host happy hours, we'll host events, we'll get them together because they can be their the greatest resource for each other.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
they span so many different industries. And so by connecting them to one another, we've just found that that's just been, it just helps to like multiply the benefits of that program over time.
Right.
And it's gotten so popular that we don't even have to market it anymore. I mean, we just,
Love it.
I mean, it's word of mouth. I mean, graduates tell you have to join this program. It's been, it was so influential. And so we have so much demand. So we're hopeful we can continue to keep that going. I think they're probably the two biggest that where I continually see and hear about the impact within the community.
Yeah. And it seems you're continuing to grow those, but are there any other like upcoming initiatives or anything that you can share with us or our audience today?
Well, I mentioned a little bit about some of the redevelopment stuff we're doing.
Yeah.
So, so a couple things there. Like we just got a position like a year or two ago, a town center revitalization manager. And so that's really given us a distinct presence within some of our town centers. So we're talking Glen Burnie Town Center, Odenton Town Center, Parole Town Center, Brooklyn Park area, which is another area of growth.
Yeah, sure.
And so this allows us to go after specific resources for revitalization, beautification, placemaking. And so we're doing some really cool stuff in Glen Burnie right now. Actually, June 6th and June 7th, we're doing a big plaza activation. And we've brought in this national, they call it tactical urbanism, but basically they come into different communities and they take, sometimes it could just be like a parking lot area or like an underutilized space, and they do a temporary activation. So it's going to be this temporary street furniture for pop-up shops, a stage, murals,
Right in
lighting,
downtown area?
food trucks, right in the plaza area.
Wow.
And so that will run from the beginning. We started doing farmers markets there again. So we'll kick off the farmers market season and it'll run through the summer into the fall. And so now that we have this dedicated function within our organization, we're able to go after more and more grant funding. So we've been really successful in pulling in some state money from Department of Housing and Community Development to do this placemaking type work, revitalization type work. The other big thing for us is we just dipped our toe into the redevelopment world. We facilitated they took a piece of county-owned property in Glen Burnie, and we managed a RFP process to redevelop that into a residential development there. And so we are still in that's still in process in terms of the work we're doing with the private sector developer. But we're finding more and more of a need for that type of work, and that's not unique to Anne Arundel. I mean, we see this in other maturing counties. There's not a lot of greenfield space left, and so the future is really redevelopment. And where a county does not have an agency to do that work, to coordinate the work, to manage the work, that knows how to handle a complex development project, there is an increasing need to form these kind of redevelopment entities. So we're starting to explore something like that for AAEDC in concert with the county.
So, what I think is very interesting about that is, we're in a, peculiar economic time right now where you have historically we had the real estate shift, the rates had changed. And I know that I have a couple businesses. One of my businesses was looking at, potentially getting some real estate, and the banks were like, we're not really doing real estate now. We're not doing commercial, or maybe residential, but I wasn't looking for residential. But to hear you say you're looking at revitalization, loans, whether it be front facades or, rehabbing the whole building, wherever that priority is, it is interesting to hear that this organization that we know very well is open to doing that. And so I think that is very interesting to hear you say that. I think it's great. I'm shocked to hear
it's a need. I mean, it's a need regionally. There's a piece of state legislation that we've been working on with some of the other EDOs in the region to try to help facilitate creation of redevelopment authorities. And so I see this as an up and coming area that we're all starting to kind of evolve into, if you will, because there's such a need. PG County has one, and they do it really well. So there's a model there. There's a local model that could be emulated in other counties. And so that's something that we're just starting to explore. So over the coming year, we're going to do some exploratory work there to see if that's something that, maybe we want to get more involved in as an organization.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's
So that's exciting.
Yeah, no, that really is. I mean, and again, it just caught my attention because I mean, where you're coming to this post-COVID era, with different accusations, and there are some businesses that will forever be commercial. Like I mean, whether it be a doctor's office or a daycare or something, right? That requires that physical offsite presence. That's great. That's real good. It's a good opportunity.
And I feel like you've only been there 2 years? You said
Just about
2
April.
years. You've made you and your team have made such an impact and difference. Like I mean, obviously, all the things that you have brought and resources. I was just gonna say, going back into leadership, I guess, what would you say is your leadership style?
So I try to lead by example.
Okay.
I definitely have high standards and can be a bit of an overachiever.
Okay.
But I am the type. But I also acknowledge that everyone has their individual styles and needs and for work-life balance. And so I would try to be very respectful of that, but also set the bar high, right?
Yeah.
Here's what we're striving to achieve.
Yes.
And not everyone has to work every weekend like I do. But but I always do want to kind of set the pace and the tone, but also be respectful of, again, the work-life balance of the folks that I'm leading. I had a really when I was working at a deli during college, the owner, I just remember it's something that just really stayed with me. But the owner would just walk around sweeping up and cleaning off counter, doing the most menial tasks that we should have been doing. But I mean, and I would think to myself, I can't believe he's doing that. But I respected the heck out of him for just rolling up his sleeves and doing the dirty work. And I've always tried to emulate that, right?
That's awesome.
So I'm never going to ask my staff to do something that I wouldn't do. Yeah. I'm going to, if we're putting on an event, I'm either setting up or cleaning up. If we get asked, when the bridge collapsed and we had to staff a resource center every single day, 7 days a week, I went there on the weekends and sat in the exhibit. I was probably the only CEO there. But I just felt like I'm not going to ask them to do something that I wouldn't do. So, so I think that's a big piece of it. Leadership-wise, I also think I had someone when I was leaving my last job. I asked for some feedback from some of my direct reports, and so someone told me something that I didn't even recognize, and he said that the one of the single greatest measures of success of a leader is someone who does what they say they're going to do, and you always do what you say you're going to do. And I really didn't recognize that. But now I think about that, and I just think that the decision making as a leader is so important. How you make decisions, when you involve others in those decisions, how you do that, doing it in a timely manner, right? I mean, people get so frustrated with decision making, so I'm very cognizant of making sure that I am very much a trust but verify person. Why are you guys laughing at me?
I'm just not laughing at you.
As you're saying,
am I saying things that are?
No, they're resonating.
Yeah.
Alex and I are laughing because he knows I'm waiting on something. And I'm like, if I don't get this,
yes,
by the
you
end
get
of
it,
today-
right? Yeah, well, everybody's waiting for you, right? And
it is.
and that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So I recognize that, and that's why I work on the weekends, because people can't proceed until I make decisions, and so I'm very cognizant of that. But I'm also, like I said, I'm also this kind of I really have always been a trust but verify, so I'm going to do my homework too. Yeah. So I need a little bit of time, but I also know I need to make a take responsive and timely action. Yeah. So constantly trying to balance all of that. It's tough, obviously, and leadership is.
The balancing, that definitely is, there's times that I always do try to say, okay, who am I blocking right now?
Yeah.
Who am I blocking? What am I causing an issue for? And usually it's Kalie. So
That's why you're all laughing.
I thought it was just me when your email got kicked back. I called her and said, "Why am I blocked? What did I do?"
No, but you look at that. There's all joking aside, you know, it's my goal to try to free people up, or if they get caught, I say, tell me your blockers, let's prioritize that and kind of move them so they can move freely. But it is a juggling act. I mean, there's no way to. That's the thing I think it's hard about leadership, right? Because we have to
You're pulled
answer
in
to
so many,
everybody.
in so many directions.
We're not we're here to serve.
Exactly,
That's
right.
what our job is, to serve. So I'm serving all day. And so by the time I actually get to anything that I need to do, it's a week later. You know, it's kind of like one of those things. It can be very, very difficult. So I mean,
it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure.
How do you balance all of those needs, not just from your team members, but community, everything like that? It's rough. Yeah. I know you are. I know, like, all the qualities that you're saying and just everything that you do. I'm like, wow, you recognize what you're doing and how you need to do it and what you need to do, and you're aware of your surroundings and the team and everything, and it's super impressive.
I think you hit the thoughtfulness is probably a key element of that, right? And just having that awareness.
Yes.
That all of these entities, people, decisions are waiting on you and need some portion of your attention, right? But I'm not gonna lie, the work-life balance thing is tough.
But I really love and respect the fact that you're not willing. I mean, you are willing to jump right in and to do these things, like you're saying, staff call centers on the weekends when you have to, because you feel that commitment to the community. And again, I think that's what sets diligent leaders apart from others. So I really, I respect that, because I'm sure we've all experienced in our career journeys leadership or management who kind of just dumps on you, and they're not really in tune with what it takes to complete that task.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think a leader who is willing to do everything they would have an employee do and be there in that role, I think is not only thoughtful and compassionate, but definitely diligent as well, because that's going to foster that trust within your team. And, then they're going to look at you and respect you even more because,
hopefully
you were thinking maybe they have some errands they need to get done this weekend. Let me go.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that was a definite yes.
Yes, absolutely. Of course. We do have a couple minutes left for a few more questions.
Yeah.
I actually have a question. So as a leader, and we may have touched a little bit on mentorship, maybe not, but I mean, are you a mentor? Are you a mentee? Like, how are you always evolving to be the best leader that you can be?
Well, I am not a mentor currently, or I guess technically a mentee, but I think it's all in your tribe. So as a women leader, I will say, one of the things, I go to these women leadership events, and one of the things that resonated with me the most was, find your tribe and tap into that. And so I have more and more, as I've been growing in my career and realizing how challenging it can get, it's really helpful to have other leaders, and oftentimes in my case, other female leaders that are grappling with similar issues, to be sounding boards, to provide support, to, and if that network is diverse in their professional areas, then to tap into their expertise. Maybe I'm having an HR problem, and I have another HR leader that I happen to be in a women's network with that I can tap into for some support there. But I just think the reciprocity of those relationships and is so valuable and so helpful, and I've really been trying more and more to forge those relationships, and start new relationships and start, where I can. I've been involved in a couple different now, and when I was in San Diego, so a lot of my career was in San Diego, and then Maryland. But in both places, I was involved in some female leadership groups, and they were invaluable. They just were. I mean, that was having those relationships was so helpful. Yeah. And so I've been really kind of looking to replicate that wherever I can.
Yeah. I can relate to that, not from just a different vantage point, but as a veteran, one of my programs that I took was is through a national program where veteran entrepreneurs are working with veteran entrepreneurs at a certain point in their process of building their company. They're now ready for that next level, but I can tell you that the reciprocity, the relationships that that was before COVID. I still, talk to these guys on a regular basis, right? We do business together. They come to me for things. I go to them for things. But I think that camaraderie, people who are facing the same battle or have come from the same cloth, been cut from the same cloth and have to do that, there is a familiarity that you become really comfortable with, right? And it's like, okay, this person can relate, they can hear it, they can hear my pain, they can hear what we're going through, and then maybe they can coach me, maybe they've done something, and I think that's a really important aspect of it. Yeah. So
and you have to get to know someone at a personal level too.
Yeah.
So that's something spending the time in those relationships and having the opportunity to get to know people on a personal level, I think is so important. I think Leadership Maryland does a good job with forging that kind of network and that personal time. You really get to know people. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, hopefully that answered your.
So I have a question. Yeah. I know we've talked a lot about your work life, and obviously, Amy, you're very busy. But what is downtime for Amy look like? What do you do to recharge and replenish?
That's the 4 hours of sleep she gets.
I don't do a good job of that at all. Okay. Yeah, I have my day job, and then I go home, and I'm a mom, and I have my night job, and it's,
right.
You have a day job.
And then one job to the next.
Run around all weekends, and
well,
to replenish. I will say I like to be active, and I feel like a mental release for me is just I try to in the mornings before I get started to do some form of exercise that helps, I think, just set the pace for the day.
Before people start asking you for things.
It keeps me mentally balanced, and I recharge when I can. But it's tough. I'm in a tough stage in life, right? I'm executive. That is also a mom and a wife, and balancing all the things, and we're all doing it, right? Yeah. So it's tough. I wish I had the secret to the success there, but I think I'm still learning.
Well, I feel like you're killing it. So keep it up.
I'm the mom that is at gymnastics, like working, and my daughter's like, "Did you see my flip?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I saw your flip." Right, so it was so good.
I'm totally there.
My laptop comes everywhere with me.
Yeah,
that's good. Well, so what I do want to kind of people they've you shared some great stuff for them. So now that you're 2 years into this. What are you planning? Like, what's next on your vision, if you will, or in your vision board and your goals and aspiration for your agency? Like, where are you headed? Can you talk about that at all?
Well, I did talk a little bit about the redevelopment piece,
right.
So I think that's a big piece that we're looking at. We're, like I said, we're kind of still in this strategic planning phase, but I think overall, I would we're starting to get more involved in attraction, business attraction. We have so many services for business retention and expansion. Yeah. And so we're looking for more opportunities to get out there and try to draw industry and key industries, target industries to Anne Arundel County.
Right.
But, a lot of things are resource dependent, right? And so we're in a bit of an uncertain time right now. And so with the strategic plan will be some, maybe new opportunities, growth opportunities for us, but also in tandem identifying the resource needs that are going to be, they're going to be dependent upon.
Yeah. Has there been an uptick in requests for like information or people interested in maybe starting their own business as a result of some of the recent changes that we've been experiencing?
We do expect that will be probably a natural outcrop as we see some layoffs, right?
Yeah.
We're actually Anne Arundel's doing a big hiring event
okay.
for federal workers, particularly
about
on March 20th. And so we'll have a table there because there's going to be, look, from one perspective, the biggest challenge I have heard from businesses since I've started my job is workforce. Yeah. So we're about to get some skilled workforce to help, I think, relieve some of the pressure on the labor shortages. And we've had a really low unemployment rate for the last couple of years.
Well, that's positive.
So,
I'm glad to hear some
So the
positivity
key
there.
for us is going to be matching the employers that need skilled labor with all of these skilled workers or whatever skilled laborers that are coming onto the market. And we want to keep Anne Arundel residents working in Anne Arundel. We want to get people off the roads as much as possible. So, matching up employers and workers is going to be, I think, an area of focus for us moving forward in coordination with Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation, AAEDC.
We love them.
They're
as well.
putting on the hiring event, but we'll have a table there because I think there's going to be a few different camps. There's going to be workers that want to explore other opportunities either in the private sector or at the state or local government level. There's going to be what we saw. I think this is my prediction. What we saw during COVID is a lot of people left and went to gig work. Yeah. So I think that the other camp will be folks that want to get into some gig work, like we saw with COVID. Yeah. And then, we saw that like one of the things we've seen post COVID is people that left their 9-to-5 jobs and they started gig work and they realized that I can kind of maintain the standard of living that I'm accustomed to, and I can do this and I have more of a work-life balance. Yeah. So I think we'll see some of that, and then I think we will definitely see some that want to start new businesses. I mean, we actually have quite a few federal employees that are, prior to all of this, that come to us and they want to start businesses and they're doing their day job and then we're helping them start a side business. And then once that business grows and they are, and it's ready to take off on its own, then they'll kind of shift over into full-time entrepreneurship. But we fully expect to see more of that. And we're here. AAEDC will be there to help them every step of the way.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you again. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with today? How can they find you? Where can they get in touch? Find your resources, programs.
Yeah, I say just, go to our website, aaedc.org, or My Arundel Biz. Definitely follow us on social. We are on all the social platforms, and we have a very robust social presence. So any resources we have available are going to be on LinkedIn, Insta,
Steve is killing
Facebook.
It over there. You guys do a great social game.
So we have a combination of all of the resources that are available. Any new funding we have to release, we'll push out. We try to be kind of a thought leader when we're hearing about different issues that are affecting the community, events. You name it. So I think that's probably the best place to track everything we're doing. And we do like to highlight our businesses that we work with. So we'll do a lot of reels, and Business Appreciation Week is usually the third week in October. So that's an opportunity for us to go out. But actually, basically what we do is we take the county executive, and this last year we had about, I want to say, 50 or so ambassadors, different county agency heads, head of different county agencies and departments, and we bring them to businesses in the county. We did over 70 businesses in 1 week, and so it's such a great opportunity. The businesses get to share their story, talk about their challenges, talk about their successes, talk about whether there's things that they need. And then you have all these county agencies that get out there and they get to meet and hear directly from the businesses. Yeah, I mean, it's such an empowering and wonderful connection, and we get the most positive feedback from both sides of the equation. And of course, we do a citation from the county executive for the businesses, and then we're promoting them on social all week. So that's a great way to get involved. So we'll push that out in early October if any businesses are interested in.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much
you
for
very much.
joining.
Yeah, we
And
might have to venture out to some of these events that
I
you're
know, I
know,
know,
right?
right? Yeah. Well, we
Haley
can-
knows
we
where
can-
to find us.
There you go.
Yes, and to our viewers out there, just make sure that you go visit their website, AAEDC. Again, Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Yeah, I'm Kalie, and
I'm Alex Ficari.
yeah.
And I'm Holly Basta. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Diligent Leader. If you liked what you heard here, these tips, all these great pieces of advice and things to think about, go ahead and share, like, and subscribe to our podcast. We're available on Apple, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
We've got so many ways
Here
for
you go.
you to listen to all this great advice and
Listen
information.
or watch. Yeah.
Listen or watch.
There you
Yes.
go.
So we're so happy that you joined us today for this episode, and we'll see you next time.